Anne Boleyn had 3 different people interested in her when she returned to England from France. Let's find out who they were and what happened. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Anna and I'm doing a PhD in Tudor history at the University of Oxford. First up, Anne Boleyn leaves Queen Claude, much to her disappointment. She leaves the French court in 1521 when she's around 20 years old, assuming she was born in 1501. The next most obvious step in her career is to secure a nice English man to marry. England and France are almost sort of at the brink of war, so it's a good time for her to come home. Anyway, but the person she's coming home to marry, someone called James Butler, Henry VIII has approved this match himself. It's a very good match for the Boleyn men, not so much for Anne. So her uncle, Thomas Howard, the 3rd Duke of Norfolk, he's been saddled with the position that nobody really wants, which is the King's Lieutenant in Ireland. However, over there you've got Pierce Butler, who's the 8th Earl of Ormond. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Ormond. But the Boleyns also have a claim to this title, but through the women. And obviously nobody wants a woman in any sort of position of power now, do they? So they think, right, well, if we marry Anne to this bloke's heir, so who will end up being the 9th Earl of Ormond, then happy days. We've got a little bit of that power. The son, James Butler, is actually hostage in England at the moment, so he's quite happy to go with these negotiations. He gets a nice wife, probably gets out of being a hostage. While these negotiations are going on, Anne is a member of Catherine of Aragon's household. However, this does all fall through, supposedly because Thomas Boleyn, her father, was getting a little bit greedy with the terms. So the next match up we have is someone called Henry Percy. Now this does seem to be at least a little bit a reciprocal interest. So she's working as a maid of honour for Catherine of Aragon. Henry Percy is being educated in the household of Cardinal Wolsey at this time. So they're both in that sort of circle. His father was a very powerful man. He was an earl. He was known as Henry the Magnificent, which seems a strange thing to call yourself when you've got a Henry on the throne. But anyway, so his father is quite a powerful man, and he's expecting his son to have a very prestigious match. Now, as we said, Anne is no commoner, but she's no great heiress. It's going to be George, her brother, that inherits everything in that family. So, while she comes from decent stock, she's not bringing any great riches to a marriage as such. So this marriage potential isn't really going anywhere. They seem to have liked each other. There's talk that there was maybe a pre-contract formed so that they may have promised themselves to each other. We don't know that for sure at all. But these sort of promises were kind of binding in the Tudor period. He had already been engaged to Lady Talbot. That had fallen through. He is looking to pursue Anne. So obviously it doesn't go ahead. Different people are blamed for ending this. Cardinal Wolsey is certainly blamed for it, and that suggests that why Anne doesn't like him particularly later on. Whether or not he did that on Henry's orders, we don't know. Again, he doesn't seem to have been all that keen himself on Henry Percy, so could have been spite there. Henry VIII was apparently still promoting this original match with James Butler. There's suggestion that Henry had already clocked Anne and he ended the marriage out of jealousy, but it seems a little bit early for that. Anyway, Henry Percy goes on to instead marry Lady Talbot in 1524, and apparently it was a pretty miserable marriage. The third potential suitor is a little bit more hard to tell. There's always discussions around Anne and Thomas Wyatt, who is the poet. there really isn't any evidence that Anne has any particular romantic interest in this man. There's not even any real evidence that he was hugely smitten with her. He was already married, but he was separated. The hints that we've got in his poetry are widely debated, whether they're actually Anne or not. He certainly refers to, like a dark-haired woman, to a brunette, which Anne was, and that was unusual in this period. But yeah, that's a bit of a wishy-washy one. The other point to note is that yes, he was incarcerated when she fell, but he quite quickly returned to the king's favour. So that one we can't be so sure on. Another thing to note is you're always reading with Anne that, oh, she wasn't a great beauty, it was just her intelligence. But she did not lack in people interested in her, did she? So I think maybe we protest a little bit too much when we say that Anne wasn't beautiful, because she certainly caught people's eye. And yes, she was interesting, and she was, maybe a bit exotic, having slightly darker skin and having darker hair and being from the French court and, having different mannerisms. But it's got to be something there, hasn't there, beyond just conversation to have this much attention, and then obviously eventually to catch the eye of the king. I also wonder if part of Henry's interest was the fact that so many other people were interested in her too, but that's pure speculation on my part. So there you go, that's what Anne was getting up to when she first got back from France. I'll see you tomorrow when we're going to think about her next great suitor and his great matter.